Sandy's Circus, a story about Alexander Calder by Tanya Lee Stone. There once was an artist named Alexander Calder, only he didn't call himself Alexander, and he didn't call the things he made art. Everyone called him Sandy. He had been making his objects since he was a kid. Sandy's mother was a painter. His father was a sculptor. Even though they moved from Pennsylvania to Arizona to California to New York and back to California, his parents always made sure Sandy had a workshop and tools. He made his friends toys and jewelry from scraps of wood, leather, and wire that he would pick up off the street. Sandy built his sister Peggy a castle for her doll, complete with a moat. He and Peggy made toy animals and played circus in the workshop. Even though Sandy loved creating things, he didn't always want to be an artist. He went to college and learned more about making things by studying to be an engineer. Sandy had different jobs, but never really liked any of them. Then he worked as a fireman in the boiler room ship. One night, he was sleeping on the deck, sailing between San Francisco and New York. When he awoke, he was awestruck. On one side of the ship was a fiery red sunrise. On the other, the full moon shone like a silver coin. The sight made Sandy want to go to art school, and he did. Artists need to work. A newspaper hired Sandy to draw the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus. For 2 weeks, night and day, he went to the stadium, drawing as many different parts of the circus as he could. He loved sketching the elephants, the flying trapeze, the lion tamer, and the dancers. Sandy sat in different parts of the theater to see from up high, down low, and off to the side. The next year, in 1926, he decided to go to Paris. Why Paris? Because that city was alive with art. And Sandy said, in Paris, it's a compliment to be called crazy. Sandy rode through the streets of Paris on his orange bicycle. He carried a roll of wire around his shoulder and a pair of pliers in his pocket. When Sandy bumped into a friend, out came the wire and pliers. He would twist and bend and curl while he chatted, and before they said adieu, that's goodbye in French, Sandy would give his friend a gift. Voila! A small portrait of the person made of wire. One day, Sandy made a little wire lion. He built a colorful cage for the lion. Of course, since the lion was a wild animal, it needed a tamer. So Sandy made him two. Then he made a high wire walkers and a high wire for them to walk on, and a safety net in case they should fall, and a flying trapeze and a red stage. And Sandy started to see the whole circus come to life before his eyes. Then he really got going. His huge hands worked with tiny pieces of wire, cork, cloth, buttons, yarn, string, leather, paper, and bits of wood. He twisted and shaped and curled and cut and curved until Sandy was ready to put on a big top circus show. His circus filled 2 suitcases. Click, click. Sandy set up the stage with his animals and performers whenever and wherever he could. He went back and forth from Paris to New York, those suitcases always along for the ride. During one stay in New York, Sandy made more animals and acrobats. His circus grew to fill 5 suitcases. When it was showtime, out came the suitcases. Click, 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 click. A friend wound up the gramophone to start the music, and Sandy boomed a greeting to his audience in the voice of his wire ringmaster, Monsieur Loyal, announcing the performance was about to begin. On his knees, this bear of a man worked the springs and strings and levers of his clever creation, making them leap, run, and dance. Hear the whistle blow, horns blare, see the flying Flippalinis flip, the lions roar, the lion tamer tame, seals bark, tossing a ball from nose to nose. Rigoulet, the strong man, bends his toes and raises a huge barbell high above his head, showing off for his beloved bearded lady. Horses gallop, birds flutter, dog dance on whirly-twirly legs. Cativo, the clown, plays tricks on his fellow performers. He dangerously distracts the axe thrower just as he's hurling his axe at the wire girl. Oh no! Injury under the big top! But never fear, help is on the way. Sirens wail. 2 wire rescue workers race in to carry off the girl in a teeny tiny stretcher. Sometimes the show went on for hours. There were chariot races and bucking broncos, a belly dancer, camels, and kangaroo. Sandy crawled around on his hands and knees, arranging his wire animals, circus folk, setting them in motion to perform for the crowd. After the grand finale, he brought them all back for a bow. Encore! Encore! The crowd laughed and clapped and cheered for more. Word spread throughout Paris and New York. Everyone wanted to see Sandy's circus. They loved how full of joy and how fun it was. They loved how Sandy's work was always in motion. People said, Sandy has discovered in playing a new world. His art has the force of an ocean. Sandy delighted in crafting things that moved. He made new kinds of art, hanging his up, connecting pieces to each other with wire, and letting air drift and spin between them into motion. In doing so, he turned ordinary objects into extraordinary art and invented the very first mobiles. It all started with Sandy's magical, movable circus. Author's note. Alexander Calder was one of the most important American artists of the 20th century, and his circus was one of the most important works. I remember the first time I saw Alexander Calder work outside of a museum. My soon-to-be husband and I were enjoying a lazy summer drive in the western hills of Connecticut. If by magic, in the midst of clouds and serene country roads, a large yard appeared, filled with bright, bold sculptures. The line, the color, the joyousness of these sculptures were unmistakable to me. Stop the car! We climbed out and peered as politely as possible into the backyard. Okay, we stared incredulously. I had no idea that Calder lived in Roxbury, Connecticut, but it quickly dawned on us that we were standing on the edge of the Calder estate. It was easy to imagine what life might have been like in that backyard when Sandy Calder was alive, passing out croquet mallets to friends who dropped by and sharing his love of life with all who were lucky enough to know him. Ever since this moment, I've wanted to capture a piece of the Calder essence in a story. The man invented the mobile, a whimsical sculpture artfully designed to move freely in the air or wind as lets it. It's a form we now take for granted. Yet even the mobiles that hang over baby cribs would not exist without Calder. He also built enormous bold metal sculptures that stood still, called stables. I hope I have been able to convey some of the Calder magic through the story of Sandy.